And our guest this morning on September 11, 2011 is the Defence Minister, Stephen Smith. But before then, we'll see what the papers are saying around the country. It's not yet September 11 in the United States, though very close to it, but it is September 11 here. Tonight, the Prime Minister is planning a speech at a ceremony for the Australians who died in the attack, Laura.
Yes, she's going to be promising that Australia will stand by the US as it marks the 10th anniversary of September 11. And if anything, we're going to the cooperation between our forces will only grow in the future. So she's going to be saying that at a ceremony for the victims, the Australian victims of September 11.
And Karen, The Age has done some calculations on the cost of Australia's response to September 11.
Yeah, these figures come from the ASPI organisation, and it's a bloke called Mark Thompson who has defence background himself. They estimate that the whole war on terrorism, so-called, in the 10 years since September 11, has cost $30 billion, mostly on defence and security. That calculation comes from both the Iraq and Afghan conflict. So they say the Iraq conflict cost about $2.4 billion, the Afghan conflict cost $7 billion, there's been another $1.5 billion in aid, and an extra $10.4 billion on home-based security within Australia. And I saw
a recent reference quoting Peter Costello as saying maybe it's time to start winding back a bit.
Yeah, that would be in my book, Barry. Thank you very much. Oh, cue the book. Yes, no, I've published a book called An Unwinnable War, and one of the things in there that Peter Costello talked about was the cost of security, and he talks about what he calls acceptable risk and what the acceptable price to pay is, and he says we should be doing risk assessments on security like we do on health policy and road and transport policy, that he thinks that we need to be certain that we're not paying too much and that we're not going too far on security measures.
And how did you manage to get the Defence Minister, Stephen Smith, to launch a book called An Unwinnable War?
Well, the book, the title, yes, it's a little provocative, but it's based around a quote from David Petraeus, the former commander, a US commander in Afghanistan, who talks about the fact that this is not, and it's the kind of war I'm talking about, this is not a war that we win, he says. This is a war that we'll fight for generations. We will fight for a long time, and our children will fight. So it's not necessarily, it's not a comment on winning or losing. It's that this kind of war is a new kind of war since September 11, and it will go on for a long time.
And Nikki, another story suggests that defence, both in uniform and civilians, are being asked to take an effective pay cut.
Yeah, well, I suppose this is really bad timing in a way when all the politicians are going to be out there paying tribute to people on the front lines fighting against the war of terror. They're effectively being offered a pay cut. They're being offered a 3% pay increase when cost of living has gone up by 4.5%. So they're not very happy about that, understandably, because it is not going to keep them up with the cost of living. So
we'll raise
very bad timing.
We'll raise that with the Defence Minister. That is the Sunday Papers, and we'll go to our program guest. The Defence Minister, Stephen Smith, joins us from Perth.